apologies for the earlier Zoom panel held on 17 March, which got hacked by unknown sources. We appreciate your patience and to join us again for today's session. It's a privilege to have esteemed panelist and moderator for this online session today to share their insights and thoughts about Vasudev's works and experience with the artist himself. We hereby call upon Suresh Jayaram to lead for today's session. Just to introduce Suresh Jayaram, as most of you all know him, Suresh Jayaram is an artist, art historian, arts administrator, and curator from Bangalore. He's the founder director of Visual Arts Collective, that is One Shanti Road Studio, an international artist residency and alternative art space in Bangalore, India. He is currently involved in art practice, urban mapping, archiving, curation, and arts education. His keen interest in environmental and urban developmental issues influences his work. He taught art history at Karnataka Chitrakala Parishad, the College of Fine Arts in Bangalore, and later on went on to become the principal between 2005 and 2007. Suresh, we request you to take the lead.
Thank you, Malini, and welcome everybody on this webinar. And I think this is going to be a regular feature where all of us are going to meet each other in webinars. And I take this opportunity to invite Ernst, Ravi, Kashi, and Lina. Ernst is somebody who I've heard a lot about, but I've not met. Lina and Ravi are friends and contemporaries, so I know them very well. So I'll go ahead and introduce Ernst for many of us who are very curious to know more about him and his great passion for Indian modern art as a collector, and also many more things which I'm going to read out. Ernst studied linguistics, literature, art history, Indology at the University of Munich, Germany, Rome, Italy, and Madras, India. He had always had a special interest in intercultural relations and correlations that cross cultural borders. He wrote articles for the renowned Kindler Literature Lexicon, a dictionary for the literary works, and cooperated in the edition of the linguistic texts. He gave many lectures on art, culture, civilization, home, and abroad. His personal interests are classical music and contemporary art. He's a great admirer and also collector of contemporary Indian art. He has participated in organizations and realization of many exhibitions on contemporary Indian art in Germany and abroad, and wrote many articles and texts about it. Indian contemporary art has always been his main topics. Ernst, we're very happy to have you here. I have been to Munich and I really love this city, especially the lovely garden which intercepts the city and the river flowing by. It's one of the most beautiful cities in Germany, I think. And I'm sure with your interest and your collection, we will have possibly some more interesting things to talk about. I would request Ernst to start his talk. I think it's largely going to be about his collection and his relationship as a collector of S G Vasudev's work, who is the main focus of today's webinar.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to speak a little bit about my relation to Indian art, which began after I had a long relation with Indian art already, but with classical Indian art, with architecture and with wall paintings and archaeological sites until 1974. In 1974, I saw an exhibition of Vasudev in Chennai, and I was absolutely fascinated by some of his first paintings. And I thought, this you could also buy and have it at home. And so these were my first buyings of Indian paintings, of modern Indian paintings. Before I had begun to have a small collection, which is now a quite big collection of Indian bronze work statues from between the 10th century and the 19th century. And what I like very, very much, on the other hand, is also I have a beautiful collection now, which is really a very good collection of Indian silver pots, silver vessels, and silver artifacts which you use normally for religious ceremonies, like lotas and things like that that you used to take holy water and put it above the statues and things like that, where I have good things from the 18th, 17th, 19th century, and of course also from today. But of course, but what I love is Indian paintings, is Indian contemporary art, which I would say my collection is rather a collection which you in Germany would call modernists, but not, you would call modernists a little bit earlier, the time of Ravikumar, the time of Gaitonde, and all those people. Mine begins with Vasudev. That means I still have some other paintings which are also from the same surrounding, because when I met Vasudev, he was in Chennai and he still lived in Cholamandal. And so I met also some other friends in Cholamandal, and I think one of my other first paintings which I could buy was Redepanaidu, which is one of the earliest paintings after Panikkar. And so my Redepanaidu is a beautiful deity that looks very, very much paintings and so on. And of course, then after having got some paintings by Vasudev, which is now the majority of my paintings of Indian art, I got a lot of paintings also by two eminent artists. The one is Achutan Kudalur, who was also in Cholamandal before, and he moved out like Vasudev moved out after some time. And he's still a very, very close friend of mine, and I have got a lot of beautiful paintings by him. And the third one, which I also still honor very much, also in Cholamandal long time ago. We had a little bit of breakup because he did different things and I did not meet him so much, but he has also a history with Germany because he was he was married to a German lady and has got a son in Germany. So I met his wife, his ex-wife, and his son from time to time. And lately in the last years, I also met Douglas quite more often. And I'm still also very fascinated by what he's doing now and what he has done before. But to take that all together, my collection began with Vasudev's, and my collection initiated also a lot of my friends in Germany to get also paintings, Indian canvases, Indian paintings. And at the time of the 80s, in the 80s, we had a small gallery in Munich, and the owners of the gallery, they always asked me, could you not say a little bit, could you not speak a little bit about Indian artists, because nobody knew in Germany. And you know, Indian art was always confined to classical Indian art or to these manga type things that you have in temple bande dessinée and things like that. So they were all very astonished and said, this is Indian art. I thought this is whatever, Western art, this is something from Paris or London or USA or so. And they always wanted to know, what is that? What is also the essence of Indian art in those paintings? What is the essence and what is the speciality? What is the typical of Indian art when you look at those paintings who look so international? So I tried to do a kind of instruction for people who were interested in this art through this gallery. And whenever they did an opening of a lot of different people, so Vasudev was there, Douglas was there, Achutan was there, but of course we had also Irana, we had Mona Rai, we had Kolte, and so I did always the introduction. I mostly wrote also the text for the catalogs, for the brochures they gave to the people. And so I got to know a lot of also Indian arts from the northern part or from the eastern part of India. Then after some time, I also did a little bit of writing in addition to what I have written in Germany on Indian artists. And I had a good connection also with this gallery, a very good gallery in Calcutta, Akar Prakar, and I did one of their I was the editor of one of their brochures, one of their small booklets on intercultural relations between Western art and Indian art. And so I got to know a lot of people there, and my collection began to grow and grow and grow. Now I think I own, let's say, about 100 canvases or something like that. I really don't know. The bad thing is that I do not have a house, which you probably have easier in India. My house is not so big, so I have kind of divided it in two different places, and have borrowed it to some of my neighbors so I can see it all the time. And I have given some of my paintings also to my nephews, who also have now become good and fervent collectors of Indian art. So everyone, of course, has got some Vasudevs, has got some Achutans, has got some Douglases, has got some Hemraj, whom I forgot before, as a young artist, a comparatively young artist from Delhi, whom I like also very much. But of course, my initiation to Indian art was through Vasudev. And we did together, I think, 3 different exhibitions in Germany. And I was also very happy to open one of his exhibitions in Sumukha Gallery long time ago, and was attending some other exhibitions that he had done in India. Yeah, this is about my history of my Indian of my way of becoming a collector of Indian art. What I now find so interesting for me was the work of Vasudev, if I could say a little bit about that, which was so intriguing for me, because for me, he's an artist who is an artist who is also using a narrative. He's not a completely abstract artist, but you have also a narrative in his paintings. You have also a subject, a theme, a story, if you want. And I was fascinated, me being an Indologist, I have studied so much of Sanskrit and the old stories from the Puranas, and so I found some of those things so intriguing. Like the first things that I got to see from him was always either vriksha, the tree that grows up from the soil, that grows up from the bodies of human beings, from the soil, and goes up into the space, goes up into the sky, and then lets fall his leaves and goes down once more. And Goethe in Germany, you all know Goethe, I suppose. This is the one who is the Max Müller Bhavan, who is normally called Goethe Institute in India's Max Müller Bhavan. Goethe said, there's one special thing, stirb und werde, die and become once more. This is the way of this eternal samsara, this eternal way of dying and becoming once more, which I found so intriguing in Vasudev's work, in the beginning of his work. And the second thing, which I also liked so much in his paintings, I tried to open a small, let me see if I find it. Yes, here maybe. Yes, a small, can you see that? A small following of different pictures that you can see here of his painting. So you have the famous Vriksha. This is one of my favorite paintings by Vasudev, where you can see the body lying down there, and you can see it's either a binary body, it's either male and female body, and you can see how the mountain grows out from him, and how the leaves and the twigs disperse themselves. And something else I found so interesting in there, you have a kind of a band through this hand, which of course reminds you of the hand that you use for swearing, that you use for protecting, that you use for banning things, and so, which gives a kind of a mythical background for the whole thing. Second thing which I had, which I bought also, there are only 2 paintings of many of my paintings that you can see here. The very early works of Vasudev is the one on the left-hand side, one Maituna, this celestial couple, which he here puts on an elephant with a halo around it, which reminds me, of course, of all the deities that you have in in bronze, in statues. And this one also, the composition of that, of course, reminds me a little bit of Redepanaidu, because he uses a lot of those things that look like deities altogether. And the Maituna subject, this is another one which I have, actually this is in my bedroom. But the first picture by Vasudev I bought is a huge Maituna, a brownish one, which is one of my favorite things, but I don't have a good photograph of that. But here once more you keep the male and the female, you can see the combination, the junction, the going together of both of them, which is so often the case for him. The third one, once more, the Vriksha for me, some two of other my paintings here, which I like very much, especially the gray one is one of the paintings I like very much, because there you can see once more this, let's say, this dispersion and these two ways of getting into another world. It goes from the darker parts and then it goes into a kind of spheric elements when you look at the leaves up there. And it's so interesting, if you could go closer there, you could see how colorful all those leaves are, how colorful all those roots are. So every leaf is a small world in itself. It's a way of showing you the brilliance of life, the brilliance of colors, and the brilliance of forms altogether. Because this comes to other paintings, which is from another series of Vasudev, which I think it's such a fantastic thing when you look at it, because it's so plain, it is so simple in one hand, and on the other hand you have everything in there. You have the lovebird in there, you have the beautiful female in there, you have the combination of that. Actually, this painting will be shown in a big exhibition on Tamilian civilization in the Linden Museum in Stuttgart next year. It was supposed to be this year, but I have to postpone it because of the pandemic. And it will be shown in a huge exhibition on Tamil art and civilization in 2022 now. I have wanted to show you another two paintings. No, one more painting, which is of course one of the most favorite paintings of my whole family. For me, it's not the one of the paintings which is so much the typical Vasudev, but of course this beautiful Ganesh looking at you, this beautiful Ganesh with those different colors of red that you have here, is something which I liked very much too. And I wanted to show you at least another two paintings, because there, at that time when those paintings were done, Vasudev was a second time in Munich, and he stayed with some friends of mine, and it was the time after the death of Arnavas, his first wife, and it was the time when he was really in kind of a distress that you can see easily in those landscapes, those seascapes, those facescapes, whatever he called them at that time. You see the sorrow, you see the pain, you see the way how he looks at life in some time, but you see also the mastership of the coloring, the mastership of the line. And we will see later on all those absolutely fantastic collages. Ravi will speak about that. The collages that made me flabbergasted when I saw it for the first time, just on the screen here, because there you could see all those things that you had before in a kind of a absolutely youthful way of things. And the development from this I wanted to have some pictures from before, and this collages, it is a world in between. It is the development of a great artist to an artist who is more in peace with himself, what I see in the collages, what is not the case here. And just to give you an idea how it looks like in my house, one of the walls in my house looks a little bit like that. My friends say that it's not so good, because this Petersburg hanging, as we call it here, you don't see too much all the different things done by itself. But of course, if you have a lot of paintings, you from time to time have to change them. Also, the only painting on this wall which I do not change is the Vasudev on the left-hand side. So I just wanted to give you an idea how one could look also at paintings from a dilettante, from just an admirer, a lover of paintings. If I were now the art historian that I am also, I would tell you a little bit more about that, but there we have specialists around you. We have Suresh Jayaram and we have Ravikumar Kashi. Actually, one of his paintings is always hanging in front of me. When I look above my screen of my computer now, I see a huge Ravikumar Kashi, which has been there also for, I think, 30 or 40 years almost. So I think it's enough for the moment, and I give the word to the next one.
Okay, thank you very much, Ernst. That was a very interesting story about all the anecdotes and your very passionate collection of Vasudev's work and all the other artists who are also known to many of us. And this is really a kind of a very interesting thing for many of us who don't know that there is a significant collection in Munich of Vasudev, and it could be possibly in a museum sometime later on.
Should be, will be, probably. If I have a house, it will be there.
I'm going to introduce Lina now. And Lina is somebody who I know, but officially I want to introduce you to her. It gives me great pleasure in introducing her to you. Lina Vincent is an independent art historian and curator with 2 decades of experience in arts management. She's committed to socially engaged practices that reflect in multidisciplinary projects. She has developed and participated in many of them. The focus area of her research includes arts education, printmaking history, and practice, the documentation of living traditions, and environmental consciousness in the arts. She recently worked on an archival museum fellowship from the India Foundation for the Arts and runs the Goa Familia archival photography project with the Serendipity Arts Foundation. She initiated and headed the Piramal Residency Artist Incubator Program in 2019 and 2020. Lina has curated numerous exhibitions with galleries across India and contributes to publications on art history and contemporary cultural practices. Welcome, Lina.
Thank you so much, Suresh, and good evening to everybody. It's really quite a privilege and an enormous pleasure to be here today with Mr. Vasudev and everyone else. I would actually like to take off from, in fact, the last set of conversations that we had, where Manju Pillai had mentioned that Mr. Vasudev has been one person who has encouraged a number of young people around him, be it Bangalore or be it in any other place. I think I can say that I am an example of one of those numerous people. Right from the very start, I have had an enormous encouragement from him. When I began my career in a gallery called Time and Space in Bangalore, I had just finished my master's at Chitrakala Parishad in art history, and I was very much aware of Mr. Vasudev's work as well as the entire legacy of the Cholamandal school. They were famous artists, and in our eyes, for people who just came out of college, they were all big people. So the very first time when I met Mr. Vasudev, and he was so warm and open and absolutely down to earth, for me, it was a big learning. It's not necessary for someone with, a huge amount of experience and so much of wonderful work in their repertoire to be arrogant or to be in any way, hierarchical. So that's one of the things that I have always deeply admired in Mr. Vasudev and learned from as well. So looking at his works, which in fact Mr. Ernst has also shown just now, They are immensely lyrical. And this entire discussion of the living plane, the terrestrial world with something that is beyond it, the connection of the microcosm with the macrocosm. These are sort of these magical stories that have come out in my personal interactions with him as well. I was very fortunate also to be able to work on a catalog of his work that was, the Copper Repoussé work that was once shown at Kinkini Gallery, I think. And during that time, it was incredible to be able to spend time with Mr. Vasudev at his studio, also visit the space at Cholamandal and see some of the work actually going on. This is the second thing that I wanted to say. The first being that he has been so encouraging to a vast number of people. And the second thing is that as an artist, over the years, he has never hesitated to change or to experiment or to simply try out a new form. And these forms could take any direction, be it, uh, copper, be it thread or tapestry, be it as it is now with collage. There is so much that is there and so much that keeps flowing out that it is something really that I think everyone feels inspired to learn from, because that's one thing that sometimes is a fear for artists, I think, to change or to experiment with something that is an entirely new language. But that's something that in fact has continuously been seen even in his retrospective that happened at the NGMA. Now, since Mr. Ernst and Ravi also will concentrate on his works, I would really like to add this entire discussion about how Mr. Vasudev, of course, walks the talk. As I said before, he's so open and warm and simply does not follow any sort of hierarchy uh, in this sort of cultural understanding of art, which is why all over Bangalore and of course, in other parts of South India, I think that there are so many cultural organizations, initiatives, collectives, groups that have been advised, inspired, as well as led ahead through his continuous support. And this may be, as Manju said last time, it could be in terms of theater, in literature, in poetry, in other collaborative activities, simply in being collectives and being art practitioners together. So many young artists in Bangalore whom I have worked with and whom I continue to have engagements with, we all know how much that one person can make a difference. Because if somebody tells you that this is a platform where you can speak or you can suggest a panel discussion or you can do a show, that one person can make that much of a difference. And that's what I wanted to say, that that is that one person who has made a huge difference to many of us. So in this sort of engagement with these various forms of expression, very free sort of, collaborative and multidisciplinary space that his art embodies or his person embodies is what is something that we can celebrate right now. And it really has extended back and forth even until now, right from right from, of course, the Cholamandal Artist Village days to NGMA, Venkatappa Art Gallery, to Art Park, and an enormous number of these interactive spaces that are not defined by a specific medium or a specific mode of discussion, but rather a really open understanding, which is how his work also speaks. It speaks of the past, it speaks of the present, it speaks of a future, and it interconnects all these spaces so well. Similarly, for us, I think as cultural practitioners, it it interconnects uh, every different space of expression, and that is what is something that I really wanted to say. So I have really deeply enjoyed engaging with Mr. Vasudev's work over the years. He has never ever hesitated to give me a work that I have asked for a showcase or for a charitable organization, or even recently to participate in a residency that I had curated, where it was an enormous pleasure watching him drawing and talking to a numerous groups of young people who had come to see him. So for me, I would like to end and say the same thing, that I am an example of one of those numerous people Mr. Vasudev has encouraged, and I know that I will carry it with me, and I will do my best to take the same encouragement forward to others. And thank you to Gallery Sumukha for inviting me to this platform. Thanks.
Thank you, Lina, for that very personal note of yours, which is same with many of us who have experienced meeting Vasudev, knowing him for so many years. I think all of us have kind of benefited from his friendship and his openness in many, many ways. And I think he's one of the few artists who cuts across this hierarchy of senior and junior artists and meets all of us, inquires about what we do, and he's very curious about the contemporary art world. And very, very young artists also seem to be benefited by the Vasudev Annavas Trust, which has supported so many young artists. And it's so important to know that it has been a stepping stone for so many of them in many ways. Recently, I was putting up a show called Urban Fabric, and I asked Vasudev to give me a few of his works, which really fit into this particular show, because it talked about a collaboration between a contemporary artist and a craftsperson. And Vasu very generously gave me this work, and I'm so happy to have included him this year, especially being his birthday, 80th birthday. And it is also a pleasure to have his work as part of the larger show. I'm going to invite Ravi Kashi, who's a long-term friend and associate. Ravi is a Bangalore-based multidisciplinary artist. His work spans painting, drawing to photography, installation, and artist books, among other mediums, articulating individual and collective experience of contemporary socio-political and cultural identities. Kashi has a bachelor's in fine arts from Bangalore University and a master's in fine arts in printmaking in MS University, Baroda, and master's in English literature also from Mysore. He has learned handmade papermaking in Glasgow School of Art, UK, and Hanji tradition Korean papermaking from Gyeonggi, Korea. His works have been shown internationally in various museums, shows, biennales, art fairs, and galleries. He's won many awards, including the National Award and the Karnataka Sahitya Academy Award for his writing. He writes on art and visual culture in Kannada and English. He is a visiting faculty at the RV College of Architecture and Azim Premji University. And you could also visit his website to know more. I would like Ravi Kashi to contextualize S G Vasudev works through his images and your articulation. Kashi.
Thank you, Suresh. From time to time, you will hear a lot of squeal in my background. The Holi is being played in my neighboring house. I would like to just continue what Lina was saying before I go on to the works from this show. In 1991, as I had just passed out from Baroda and started working in the field, I got the Arnavaz scholarship, and that was a very very important support for me at that time, and also a kind of validation that I can really sustain in the field. And later I have been working with Vasudev on various platforms, projects. I've been with him in NGMA and Venkatappa Gallery and so on. And as Lina also mentioned, this is one thing which I really admire about him, is that from day one, I never felt that there is a huge age difference and also seniority difference between me and him. I'm close to 27 years younger to him, but I never felt that. And whenever I go to him with any idea about doing something in the public domain, he's always there, and then we work together. And a very important aspect which I would like to mention here, that in the meetings that we sit for, he always allows others to speak, and a very kind of collective wisdom to prevail, and not necessarily all the time insist on his words to be carried to the end, which I think is an amazing quality, because we don't see it in many places. I would like to share images from the recent show of his collages show, and then as I do that, I'll talk about those works. I'll do the screen sharing now. Is my images visible? Okay, great. So the show is called Montage of Memories, and it is essentially a set of collages which he did during the lockdown time. It started, and I had a conversation with him about this. And he said, as he also had a lot of time, he started doing these collages. And he also mentioned that somewhere in mid 60s, he had done some collages, and then after that the collage itself was not revisited by him. And this was the first time in almost 3 decades or so that he is doing a body of work using the collage medium. Collage is essentially a set of fragments of maybe color, texture, images which are coming together, which also happens in Vasu's work. Very interestingly, in the work that we see on the show here, these collage pieces, which are they actually strung together, or they're anchored by using the drawing, so that the collage pieces don't remain as collage pieces, but they get subsumed and they become part of the bigger, the kind of work that is developing, which is a very interesting way of, adopting the collage element into the work. And then the collage pieces themselves are a kind of, they are hovering in this black space, and sometimes some of them are the white paper, but they have this very intense color and texture and so on, which gets connected together by a series of drawings and mark making and all the other typical Vasu way of handling those areas. And also very interestingly, though this is a new body of work, you will also be able to see a huge connection to his earlier work. So in that sense, it is a certain amount of continuity as well as a new area which is exploring. The tree image that we are seeing on the screen now is also coming from his earlier preoccupation in the last several decades. But here tree becomes very luminous, and also it is populated with people and birds and all that. And in that sense, it doesn't remain just a mere tree, but it starts becoming a metaphor for that tree of life, which is also another theme which he has explored over a period of time. And what is interesting here is that in many of his earlier works, there is a kind of free flow between the background and the image. Not a very, in the sense, not a very strictly defined image, but there is the image flows in and out between background and foreground. Here, there is a very strong presence of the image, and then there is also very strong separation between the background and the image that is being created here. Also, very interestingly, the whole show there is this set of imagery between man, animal, tree, and divinity. So they all intersect, and they, they take little bits of pieces from here and there, and then they start becoming a much bigger whole, much bigger, presence. And you'll see this one more piece where a tree from his earlier work is continued, but a very different kind of tree. And you can also imagine this as a man who is spreading his hand and then standing there. And very interestingly, the collage pieces that are being used, they lose their initial identity and then start becoming part of the bigger narrative that is weaving and telling us. And this is the example where you will see on the right hand part of the screen, there are all these lines and marks which are really connecting these collage pieces together and make it as a whole image. Otherwise, they would just float and be separate in the overall space. And other interesting thing is, in some of the collages, you will see that the image is still recognizable. Like if it's a face from magazine, or from some other landscape or things like that. And in some, it becomes a mere texture or a color patch which gets subsumed in the bigger work. Again, here is a work called Man Animal, and on the right hand side you will see there is a face, part of a face, but it gets adopted as part of an animal. So you will recognize the face, but it doesn't remain a face, but it becomes a animal in the end, end of the work. So these kind of shifts are very interesting. You start recognizing that part of the also earlier, but then it doesn't remain that particular image anymore. So this transformation, I think, is very interesting in this set of works. So you will see there is a face, but then it also gets adopted as another part of the face is drawn, and this remains as a small part of that bigger drawing. So these kind of shifts I really like. And also there is a interior here, but only if you tilt your head you will see the interior. Otherwise it becomes a very interesting set of colors and patches which lend itself to another image. So the collages images which are used are constantly shifting their earlier avatar and then start becoming something else. Another interesting thing which I see here, which I also spoke with him, and so he started using his own images from the catalog, cut them and started using it as part of this collage. So his earlier work becomes a ready-made for this work. And then in the process, they get a new lease of life, a new avatar, if you want to call that. And then it again gets transformed because there is some other drawing coming in, or only the face from one work is used and another is from another texturous surface of a painting and so on. So this is another set of works where he started cutting parts of the catalog of his earlier work and then started using them in a very different way. And in that process, there is a huge change in the way we look at those earlier images also. And another set of interesting work here is this called, they are called also reflection in the next work. But here when you cut out a face in the catalog, the remaining space, that is the negative space, becomes a defining factor for the face of what you see here in this work. So in that negative face, he starts drawing a face, and in the negative space. So what was left out from another image becomes a defining area for this work. And then that becomes also the thing which really define. Like here in this set of works called reflection, what is taken out as a positive space. So there is a play between the positive and negative, or inner and outer, or so that kind of play between the space as well as the image is there. And in some of these works, there is a very strong vision of the positive and negative, which you normally don't see in his work, because as I said before, there is a continuous flow, or there is a slow transformation from one to the other. In some of these works, that I think is a new shift, where you will see a strong usage of positive and negative areas, and also the reflection of something being taken out and put outside in another space, and then a reflection also like a mirror kind of reflection on the right hand work, and this almost becomes a mask, like a African mask kind of feeling starts coming in the negative space that was created by cutting off that face from the earlier work. So it's very interesting in the sense that though some of these are old works, but they get a very different life here. And I also would like to explore some of the new themes that are coming, have come up in this set of works. One is, a magician, which is very interesting, because only there are two activities which are being defined in this set of work. One is magician and the other is a dancer. Normally, in his earlier works, the action of the person is not defined. He either is only a he or she or a man and woman and things like that. What he does or what she does is not really defined or part of the work. So in this set of work, I see the actions like being a magician or being a dancer is being brought to the forefront. And then you will also see this magician, somebody with elaborate dress, with Jadoo Sarkar kind of thing, and then bringing out all kinds of smaller interesting things from the hat. Or it could be a magician which is much more metaphorical, much more metaphysical also to that extent, and then a lot of things coming out from that one magician who is a central creator. So in that sense, though the word is magician is used here, I think it goes beyond that mere magic of the mundane world, and then it becomes something more in these works. And a chair which I have not seen his earlier works is another very interesting theme that has come out. Then you have Durga and another work of a deity. So this is also a new line of thought, new line of images which are coming out. And you have tree and man. So there were the separate images which have started combining here, and then somewhere along in the middle, the man starts becoming part of the tree, and then the tree starts growing along with him. And as I mentioned before, the first image which I showed you, though it is titled as tree, it almost looks like a man. So there is a kind of combination or a synthesis that is happening between the tree and the man or a human figure, which is another new development. And then man and animal also, I see, like taking a dog for a walk or being followed by an animal, or there is also a kind of conversation between the man and animal. That is another theme that is coming up. And all these are very interesting works because of the way the drawing is working along with or even over and above the collage. So if there was drawing was not there, then I think a very different kind of effect would have come. So the preliminary, his concern with drawing or his investment in drawing continues here, and then it kind of synthesizes with the collage element. And then I think this is the last slide which I'm going to show. This is the Surya, image of Surya, which also I have not seen before. I think he has a similar kind of image in some of his copper reliefs, if I'm correct, but I have not seen much of this kind of image in the paintings. And the dancer also, which I mentioned. And then this dancer gets connected to the Theatre of Life, series which he had done, where there is a screen, and then the screen is unveiling, and then all the people who are actors in this stage of life starts playing their roles. That can also be seen here. So in that sense, there is a continuation with all the other earlier themes and metaphysical connections that he makes between man, animal, divinity, and the tree and all that, which also gets manifested here. Ideally, I would like to have called this show Rhapsody at 80, because at this age, the kind of energy that one sees in his work, and also the kind of energy, especially I like the way he really engages himself with in the public domain. He could have been very happy with just doing his work, but constantly in so many projects that we see around in Bangalore, and as Lina mentioned, in various other states, engaging with youngsters, engaging with a group of artists, and trying to work in the public domain or the artists collectives. That is one thing which I really admire about him, other than his works. And I thought I've taken you through these collages and then shared my analysis of what is new and what is the continuous element that is flowing in these works. Thank you. I'll stop screen share now, and then we can
Thank
have the
you,
discussion.
Ravi, for that very extensive kind of review about Rasu's latest work. And I think it's one of my favorite works also. One is that Vasu is very light and playful in his recent works. It has a lot of references to the works that he's done before. It's also a culmination of many of the other subjects as he's dealt with down the years. But here I see a certain spontaneity and lightness in his collages, and I think it has created a new dimension in his work, where he's also referring to the kind of popular culture of magazines, etc., which he kinds of plays with his very classical line. I also want to mention that Vasu historically is very important for us for many reasons. One of it is that he connects the Madras modernity with what is happening in Karnataka at a particular junction. And this kind of brings in a certain connection with the Madras modernity and what was happening in Karnataka. And I think as a senior artist, this particular connection between what was happening in Karnataka and elsewhere, Vasu plays a significant role as an artist who's traversed these many different styles, different themes, etc., working with the arts and crafts kind of aesthetic, working on canvas, and also working with this very typical line which sometimes is so ubiquitous with the artists from Cholamandal and Madras. So I feel Vasu's work has played a significant role by influencing a lot of artists in many ways, and the younger generation of artists have also been benefited by his support. His own work has been an inspiration, and I think I will open up the floor for questions if there are any from people who have been attending this webinar, and hopefully we are going to have some questions, or we can ask each other a few things. I think we have some more time on us. So opening the floor to questions. Malini.
Can I come in, Suresh, for 5 minutes?
Yeah, please,
Okay.
please.
So before the question starts coming, I think in Indian art, every generation has to find its own conversation with the tradition. Like they have to have a dialogue with the tradition, and then find something that they can take from there. So there is certain kind of continuity in their work, and also they use this tradition as a bigger background for their individual identities. And Cholmandala was one such very strong effort in South India to engage with the tradition. And the way the Vasu has engaged with tradition, one is the kind of linearity in his work, which is a very dominant element. I think that comes from the engagement of the tradition, the linear quality of the Indian traditional paintings, be it miniature or murals and so on. Other very interesting is the copper repose, copper relief work. Normally, the copper relief is used in temples, in the door and on to cover the pillars and things like that. But here, Vasu takes the medium and then makes it his own, and then a contemporary set of images are started coming out in the medium, which was a very traditional kind of medium. And also the weaving, which you mentioned in your work and your show, and which you have used. It's also another tradition, a way of making something, and then that gets adopted by Vasu, and then he gives it a very contemporary kind of voice, which I think is a very phenomenal thing to do. And again, going by that line of thinking, even our generation will have to engage with the tradition that we see around and see how we can take something from that at a not at a surface level, something an essential part of that, or something that can one really carry further, and not as a mere copying from tracing sheet to tracing sheet kind of thing, but a living aspect of a tradition which one can continue in our work, if I can put it so.
Thank you, Ravi. Again, back to Malini. How are we doing on time?
Good.
We have another 10 minutes, Suresh, to take questions.
Could I also say a little bit more about these drawings? Okay, someone. Yeah.
Ernst, you are muted.
Yes. Okay. Now I'm back. Just wanted to say, because you said very rightly that there's a lot. You always have to be together with the tradition and your own way of doing novel things, new things. And I think the fantastic idea in all those collages is that Vasudev is using his own tradition, because he's got a long tradition of 50 years or more than 50 years of paintings and of creating art in different ways. And all that comes together in a kind of an outburst of new works now, of those 40 more new works. It looks like a youthful explosion that we have here. And you see all those things that you have seen before. You have the lyrics in it, you know, and you have the emotion in it. You have the joyousness in it, and you have this légèreté, this lightness in there, which if you think this is something from an artist of 80 years old, and you could not believe that you have all this youthfulness in the whole thing that you've never found in the last 40 years in your paintings. It was in the beginning, I think, but in between, in the middle, with all those personal crises, and so it changed a little bit, and now it all of a sudden changes back with a real outburst to a youthfulness and to a hilarity, in a way, to a joy of life that you can really feel when you look at it. And the other thing that you can also see, you see, if you look at the painting wise, you look at it because Vasudev, from the very beginning, from the very beginning of his paintings, the line was always so important. The line, not so much the coloring, but the line is, for me, is the most important thing in his all in his work. This is why he's also doing this brass things, you know, the metal works, so where you also have to use the line. But when I look at the drawings which I have from him from maybe 40 years ago, this is fantastic. They really very organically go over into the collages that you have now, where you use the line, you use the colors as a kind of a patterns and patches altogether, and something else comes out of it. A way of looking at life, a way of looking at things with the clarity of an old man who you would never think that this is an old man, because the clarity shows you the youngster in all those things.
Thank you. We never realize Vasu's age, because he's always with young people, and
yeah.
Age is no way.
It's a fact. It's a fact, you know.
Creativity. But I have a question, and it's from. It would be nice to hear Vasu speak briefly about his collages, and another question that which is asked by Niyati Shinde, and another question that's also connected is from Sanjay Kabe, who says that why Vasudev chose collages to express himself now. Was it spontaneous or was it thought over? So question back to you, Vasu.
You want me to answer the question? It was just purely accidental. It was just accidental. You know, I had done some collages in 1987 or 88, 4 of them, which was exhibited at the National Gallery of Modern Art during my retrospective. But they didn't have any line on that, only paper. And then it was just, you know, I was doing a lot of drawings in my small studio here. And while doing the drawings, one day I found invitation cards, some invitation, beautiful gold, silver, embossed thing card. So I just tore them into small pieces and then stuck them on. And that's how it started. And then I realized that there is a possibility of combining drawing and collage. Then I took a lot of magazines and very highly glossed magazines. After doing some work, I thought, why should I only depend on other things? Why can't I depend on my own images? That's how images from my own paintings come. It came into the picture. But it was purely accidental, and I never even thought about it. And it just happened. And I think as you are all saying old, I think old age is in one's head. It is not anywhere else. I think if you think old, you're old. Think young, you're young. So myself and Ernst, I think we know each other for how many years? 1974.
Yeah, 45 years. 45 years or so.
Yeah. He is about 2 years or 3 years younger than me. That's all. But then we have been sort of and always I look at him the way he talks about so many things in passion, very passionately. That really makes it very interesting. I really and also working with the different generation of artists makes you much younger.
Yes.
Not necessary for you to be with only my generation of artists. In Chennai, there is a hegemony. There is always sort of a senior, junior, sub-junior feelings. But here in Karnataka, you don't have anything like that. That's one thing which is I really admire and appreciate that I am in the middle of all these people. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Vasu, you're young at heart, young at mind, and being open and always being with young people, I think that is what gives you the energy and the spirit to always keep reinventing yourself, constantly being so creative. And I think there's never been a boring moment in your life. You've all constantly keep doing something or the other from the time that I know you, maybe from the past 30 years. So it's amazing to see your body of work at your retrospective, and also to see the current body of work which we saw at Sumuka Gallery. And it was a pleasant surprise to many of us, because we always keep anticipating that there'll be something new coming up, etc. But I think you really played around with yourself this time, and I think more collages should be coming our way. I think it's something that we all look forward to. And as you said, age is just a number. It's just how you think you are. And I want to give others the last word. Lina, you want to say something? Ravi or Ernst, please, one sentence that what you want to say about Vasu and his work. Go ahead.
For me, it was a revelation to see those new works, and I think this revelation is something that it's a kind of a highlight in the whole development of Vasudev's art, and I'm very happy to see this highlight once more and have some pictures of that at home soon.
I really enjoyed the presentation because I haven't been in Bangalore, and it was fantastic to be able to see all those images and those amazing forms floating around in such freedom. So thank you for that, Ravi. And I think that what I wanted to add in all this is that this relationship with the local is something that is so crucial in the manner in which all this has developed. The identification with vernacular, with region, with local, that's something that opposes this whole idea of going away somewhere and producing something in another place. But here, because of that identification with the local and a relationship that has developed, is why all these various radiating circles of cultural activity have happened. And so I'd like to just congratulate Mr. Vasudev again, and Yeah, I think it's great for all of us to be here to celebrate his work.
Ravi?
Yeah, basically, I would like to thank Vasudev for the kind of mentorship and the friendship that we have had. And then I look up and I learned many things from him. So yeah, that's the. I hope I can adopt many of those things in my work and life. Yeah. Thank you very much.
We have more time as I can see. I want to ask anybody else, maybe Pramila Lochan. I can see Pramila there if she wants to say something, or Pratibha Nandakumar. Please, if you're willing to ask something or say something or comment something about Vasudev's current work or something you want to say. Anybody else too? It could be Lalita or...
There's another question in chats.
Okay. It says, Meher Marfatia says, is there a deliberate connection between the heightened element of movement Vasu has from last year in his works? A striking 2020 examples we just saw, worked on during a confined time for human lives across the world. So, Vasu, the question back to you.
I don't know how to answer that question, really. Meher, sorry.
For me, many of these collages look like they're individual characters who can come together and have a large play. Like you have this shadow play, the puppet kind of thing. So each of these characters can be used, and then you can make a nice animation, and then it can become part of a larger, theater or a video kind of thing, animated video, and it will be very interesting to see that happening. And what Meher is suggesting is this kind of, all of us were stuck in individual spaces. So maybe that is one parallel I can see in these collages, is that they're all single characters with only an animal or a tree with that, and there are not many characters which I can see in many of your earlier works. So there may be some kind of connection there, but not a very strong one. But I like this idea of each of these collage being one individual character, which can become part of a bigger, theater kind of performance.
Maybe you should, Vasu, this is just for fun. Maybe you should ask a animator to animate them. I think it will be really wonderful to see it animated. It could become a collaboration.
It could be. It could be.
Looking for more questions.
I think I wanted to say one thing more. I think this combination of lines and of small patches of his own work is something that combines maybe two of his crafts, two of his magic ways of doing things. You can see the paintings that have been done before, and you have seen the lines that are new, but the lines go back to the drawings that he has done before. So in a way, the whole tradition is given in those paintings, and yet it's come out something completely new, something which is new in this way of doing things, but it's not new in the way of the subjects he is using, because we have the vriksha, we have the deity, we have the tree, we have the Maituna. All those things are there, and there are, as Ravi said, only very few new subjects in together, but all the subjects that were already here, that are always the subjects of his whole life's production, they are all used and they are transformed into new ideas, into new ways of doing things in another way. And this is something which reminds me, when I spoke about old age, this was for me something which is a very, very special thing. This is what I remind me, for example, also of Picasso, for example. In the last works of Picasso, this Fauvism, 10 years before his death, he did a lot of things that were so fresh, so exciting, because he used all those brushes and he used the same old subjects with a new ways of doing it. It's exactly what is Vasudev doing with his collages. He uses traditional subjects of his own life, of his own production, and gives them a new life through a new way of developing into a new art. So for me, it's also something that you find sometimes very rarely in history of art. I remember Picasso, I remember Paul Klee in the same way, and also in the line of drawings, for example, also Cocteau, who did things like that in the end of his life, which is also fantastic. And this is something where we can combine, where we can put together also a little bit the Western art and the Indian art, where Vasudev is one of the most prominent representatives of that Indian art.
Thank you, Ernst. There's one small observation and question. It says, it's from Pratibha Nandakumar. It says, the collages are stunning, but if Vasudev had painted also, the effect could have been the same. So she says that, I mean, the way he has been using colors since some time, he would have painted them equally effectively. So it's maybe a compliment rather than a question. So everybody's raving about your collages, and they think it is like your early work, but I differ with that. I think there's something new happening here which is quite magical, with works which I think Ravi also told us. It's the one word I could use, if I could use an Indian word, I think it's something like chamatkara, like something magical is happening here. Okay, there's Jyoti Punwani's question. She says, stuck at home during the lockdown, did you miss painting in your studio, or was the experience completely different?
Anyway, I work in isolation because I think most of the artists work in isolation. And I didn't want to get depressed because of isolation. Only thing I was missing was that, mixing with people, mixing with younger artists and, various programs and other things like that. But what I did was, in the new place where we have moved in now, since last 2.5 years, it has got a very nice space around, and, children playing there, making some sound. It's very interesting to hear all these things. At the same time, I felt that I had a lot of time to see a lot of things on YouTube. I saw a lot of programs on YouTube, music, theater, art, and a lot of interviews, views, which I had never seen earlier. I was not spending so much of time on computer like that. That could have also influenced me when I started doing the collages. Some sort of images, what I saw, some stories came up, I think. And as far as the painting is concerned, I don't know whether if I start painting again, I think it can be as colorful as the collages, but it's a different medium altogether. You can't be doing the same thing, similar things there on the canvas. It's not so easy. Collage is a collage and painting is a painting. It's not the same thing. And for Pratibha, who has asked this question, and she wrote on me, I think in 1989, big article. At that time, she had just finished a course or whatever it is. Wrote on me, and in Sudha magazine, cover of me there, and the cover, my picture on the cover, and everything. It was a huge, exposure for me, and I should remember that Pratibha. And Pratibha, I always liked her poetry a lot, and poetry has influenced me a lot. not only her poetry, but various other poetry, from Ramanujan or Bendre or Adigar, people like that. And so many writers have influenced me. And I don't specifically take art from only other art images. I take inspiration from various other sources also. It could be poetry, it could be theater, it could be somebody. Well, I mean, art also is important of other artists' work, but at the same time, more from this literature, And so that has made it, I felt it makes a difference, to react like that. And so I really admire people like poets and writers and, theater people, personalities, and actors, dancers, musicians, really admire them, the way they can explore possibilities. And I try to explore in a similar way in my own work, using all these things.
There's one question from Ammu Joseph. She says, would you also like to take inspiration from politics?
Well, I mean, fortunately, it was after I met Ammu, I was in Chennai before, and my connection with people were all mostly artist community, in Cholamandal. But when I came to Bangalore and met her, I met a lot of people from various different backgrounds, like, journalists, activists, filmmakers, and there is a Navroz contractor who is sitting here. I met them all in a very different atmosphere. And so the thing is that my reaction to politics also is very much there. I may not be able to sort of do a painting or a drawing immediately reacting to something which is, the politics, but it definitely is there in me, and it gets into my system, and sometimes it can come out, I suppose. Recently there was some farmers, they had a sort of a, a sort of a, what's called, they had a, I can't get the word. Yeah. So the thing is that, then the thing is that I was asked whether there's a possibility for me to do some work. So I immediately thought of Puttapa's, K.V. Puttapa's, one of the Nikila Yogi. And I took from that a message. I did collage, because I was doing some collage work. In collage, I created a farmer with a Negila Yogi and things like that, and I wrote a few lines from that poem, which was used by the people. The big flags were made and they took it in the procession and things like that. So I mean, things can happen like that also. Yeah, I mean, it may not come immediately, but something comes out at some point of time.
Just another connection is that Ammu suggests that I think you were also active in the anti-emergency movement much before you met Ammu. So that is something that Ammu commented about.
That's the only thing which I did, I suppose, in Chennai in the 70s, when there was this sort of Indira Gandhi created this thing. And so, it was a problem. It was a problem for many of us. And so I signed a petition along with other writers and musicians and dancers. I signed. And one of my friends, who is a good friend of mine, he said, why did you have to sign it? Because, you will never know what's going to happen to you if you sign. I said, let it happen. It doesn't matter. But, that was there in me. But it really was much bigger, much enlarged after I moved to Bangalore. I reacted to it, things much more in Bangalore.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Vasu. And thank you all the audience who've been watching this very interesting conversation, and the panelists. Thank you, Ernst. Thank you, Lina, Ravi, everybody. It's been wonderful to have Vasu here, and thanks to Sumukha for making this happen. I think big namaskar to everybody, and we are going to end now. And bye, and hope to see you all live sometime in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vasu. Thank you, Suresh. Thank you, Lina. Thank you, Ernst.
Thank you, Ernst.
Thanks. Verlassen.